Hey everyone, this is Derek Bros with the Conscious Resistance Network. I wanted to talk to you for a moment about the latest developments in the Western NATO nations' false propaganda, this waging war on ISIS, waging war on terror all around the world. Um, if you've paid attention to our channel, or if you've paid attention at all to independent alternative media, then you know that the United States has had a hand in creating, financing, and supporting the groups that became and are now currently known as the Islamic State or ISIS, along with Turkey supporting them, Saudi Arabia, and other NATO nations. But in the past week, we've seen some interesting developments that signal, I would say, an end to the US led lie, this global lie that's being fed to people around the world. And it starts here in Turkey. In the past week, two Turkish journalists have been detained after reporting that arms are being smuggled from Turkey, into Syria, possibly in the hands of the Islamic State. Possibly, I say, just to kind of keep myself out of trouble, but I think it's all but certain that these groups are sending weapons through these supply lines and they're getting into the hands of the Islamic State. Now, these two recent journalists that I cover here are from the paper, I'm not even going to say how to try to pronounce it, but the Cumhuriyet newspaper. Ken Dundar, editor-in-chief, and senior editor Erdem Gül are both being held in prison near Istanbul for publishing photos which purportedly show Turkish intelligence sending weapons into Syria. So last week, both men wrote to the European Union asking the leaders to consider the human rights record of Turkey before signing an agreement with them on the refugee crisis. Unfortunately, the European Union decided to go forth and sign an agreement with Turkey and pretty much ignore the civil rights violations. The State Department said, or the president of the European Commission said, the deal would not, quote, lead to a situation where we forget about the main differences and divergences we have with Turkey, human rights, and freedom of press. So is there any truth to these claims that ISIS is being funneled weapons through Turkey into Syria? Well, RT actually went to go visit the newspaper in Istanbul that was where these two men were imprisoned, and to talk with the reporters. And the reporters said those who sent the convoy from Turkey knew that the weapons were heading to end up in ISIS hands. There was the flag that belongs to ISIS. We could see it very clearly from the Turkish borderline, the journalist said. He says the Turkish officials made contradictory statements after the paper blew the whistle, first saying that the arms are going to the Free Syrian Army, then denying the delivery altogether, and then saying that the aid was in fact destined for Turkmen. So another person who made these claims and is now dead as a result of a mysterious car accident, journalist Serena Shim, she reported similar claims. She was working with Iranian news outlet Press TV. She was threatened by Turkish officials after reporting that ISIS supporters were being smuggled across the Syrian-Turkish border. She was killed in a car accident last year, just days after she was accused of being a spy. And her family believes that, she was murdered. And in fact, earlier this year, Reuters, the mainstream outlet, reports that Turkey's state intelligence agency helped deliver arms to parts of Syria under Islamist rebel control during 2013 and early 2014, according to a prosecutor and court testimony seen by Reuters. The witness testimony contradicts Turkey's denials that it sent arms to Syrian rebels and by extension contributed to the rise of Islamic State. So yes, there's direct evidence, and please check out this report from Ben Swan, how he explains that the United States government and their partners knew that they were going to create this situation by destabilizing Syria in their effort to remove President Bashar al-Assad, that a group like ISIS would be created and would rise up. So there's these reports, right? And then today, this morning, Russia has a press conference where they announce that they have proof that Turkey is involved in the Islamic State oil trade. Because if you don't know, one of the reasons that ISIS, the Islamic State, is growing as in power is because they have oil money. And people have been wondering, well, where are they getting funding from? Where is this money coming from? It's coming through Western nations, through the United States and their partners. And Russia says they have the proof. You can see right there an undated still image taken from a video made available by Russian Defense Ministry. It shows the Turkish-Syrian border. And Russia's defense ministry said on Wednesday it had proof that Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan and his family were benefiting from the illegal smuggling of oil from the Islamic State-held territory in Syria and Iraq. Moscow and Ankara have been locked in a war of words since last week when a Turkish Air Force jet shot down a Russian warplane. So Russia starts saying they have evidence that Turkey's involved with oil trade with the Islamic State, and all of a sudden a Russian warplane gets shot down. Erdogan responded by saying that no one had the right to slander Turkey by accusing it of buying oil from the Islamic State. And if you've noticed recently, there have been reports of people being jailed and threatened for writing and accusing him of this. He's now passing laws and saying you'll go to jail if you accuse him of this, and that he would stand down if such allegations were to be proven true. So he said, if they could prove this, I'll resign. And this morning, defense ministry officials with Moscow, they showed satellite images, which they said showed columns of tanker trucks loaded with oil at installations controlled by the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq, and then crossing the border into Turkey. The officials did not specify what direct evidence they had of the involvement of Erdogan and his family. I've also seen other websites, Zero Hedge, an unconfirmed report as of this moment that it's tied to his sons. So this is still a developing situation. But Russia's calling out, the United States partner Turkey here, saying, "Look, we've got the evidence." And they've been saying for a while that they are, having trouble defeating the Islamic State because the United States and Western partners continue to support them. So that's the whole Turkish side of that, where the lie is getting exposed on that. But then let's move over towards Iraq, get out of Syria into Iraq, another area where the Islamic State is, and that's just been destroyed since the United States came in. And the United States has been discussing sending more troops in to fight the Islamic State. And guess what? The Iraqi prime minister is saying that they do not want the U.S. to come in there. Defense Secretary Ash Carter, U.S. Defense Secretary, announced new deployments of U.S. Special Forces into Iraq, despite coming with some talk of limiting operations inside Iraq to those done at the invitation of the Iraqi government, appears to have come without even mentioning it to the Iraqi government beforehand. Prime Minister Haider Abadi warned that Iraq, as it has insisted repeatedly before, welcomes air support against ISIS, but does not need or want any foreign ground troops, and warned the U.S. government to respect the Iraqis' sovereignty in the matter. So that's a developing situation. Then you hear the same thing. Iraqi Shiite militias pledged to fight U.S. forces if deployed. Powerful Iraqi Shiite Muslim armed groups on Tuesday pledged to fight any U.S. forces deployed in the country after the United States said it was going to send a special unit. As I just said, Defense Secretary Ash Carter said he would send more than 50 people, larger than the roughly 50 special operations troops that they just sent to Syria that Obama announced. And it says a U.S. defense official speaking on condition of anonymity said the new force will be based in Iraq. We will chase and fight any American force deployed in Iraq, says Jafar Husani, a spokesman for one of the Shiite armed groups. Any such American force will become a primary target for our group. We fought them before, and we are ready to resume fighting. Several other groups echo these statements. They don't want us. They don't want the United States military in there. I'm not saying us because I'm not with the military, and the United States government doesn't represent me. But they don't want the U.S. government in there. Now look at this story. This is the Washington Post, another mainstream outlet. Iraqis think the U.S. is in cahoots with the Islamic State, and it is hurting the war. One of the front lines of the battle against the Islamic State, suspicion of the United States runs deep. On the front lines of the battle, Iraqi fighters say that they have seen videos showing U.S. helicopters airdropping weapons to the militants, and many claim to have friends and relatives who have witnessed similar instances of collusion. Ordinary people have also seen the videos, heard the stories, and reached the same conclusion. One that might seem absurd to Americans, but is widely believed among Iraqis. You see how they throw that in there? It might seem absurd to Americans, so if you believe this, you're absurd. The United States is supporting the Islamic State for a variety of pernicious reasons that have to do with asserting U.S. control over Iraq, the wider Middle East, and perhaps its oil. Yes, this is a plan that General Wesley Clark said after 9/11 that we will be going into 7 different countries: Iraq, Syria, Libya, Iran, eventually, and Sudan as well, Yemen. So we are involved in all these nations' bombing campaigns. This is the plan unfolding. It's not in doubt, says Mustafa Sadi, who says his friend saw U.S. helicopters delivering bottled water to Islamic State positions. He is a commander in one of the Shiite militias that last month helped push the militants out. The Islamic State is almost finished, he said. They are weak. If only America would stop supporting them, we could defeat them in days. Do you guys get that? If only the American people would stop supporting them through their taxation and the U.S. government and military. If only, under the Obama administration. So this shows their ideas of what led to the ISIS, but I advise you to watch Ben Swann's The Origins of ISIS to get some real news on how the United States helped create this situation. But there you have it. The world is waking up to the fact that Turkey is helping the Islamic State and supplying them with oil. Russia's calling them out on it. The world is also waking up to the fact that they don't want the United States to put troops in Iraq to continue to fight ISIS. In fact, they think that they're probably helping ISIS. So the United States is getting called out all around. The Western governments are. And I live in this country, but I love to see it get called out on its bullshit. The leadership get called out on their bullshit. And I hope that this will inspire more people to look into what's really going on in the United States and to pursue solutions, because this is crazy geopolitics. And sometimes it feels like it's out of your hands. There's nothing you can do about it. But the things you can do is to localize, to work on yourself as an individual being, and to get involved in your community, and to have these conversations, and to spread this news, spread these articles, and to spread this message. Thank you guys for listening. Please give us a thumbs up, share, follow us on Facebook, and support us at theconsciousresistance.com. Peace.
If they were good enough to use for a practice hijack on Friday, why wouldn't our military commanders, who had the authority to, quote, generate, the phrase is to generate, why wouldn't they call them on Tuesday for the real thing if they were good enough for practice on Friday? The Vigilant Guardian